Well, welcome everyone to North East Water's community webinar series. My name is Jo Murdoch and I'm the Managing Director here at North East Water. I do want to say thank you for joining us today to learn about North East Water's drought preparedness and water conservation. I would like to start though with an acknowledgement of the traditional owners of the lands and waters on which we operate and are meeting today. I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with us. At North East Water, we recognise the deep and enduring connection to land, waters, culture, and community that our traditional owners and First Nations people have. And during this week, being National Reconciliation Week, we reflect on our shared history and we honour the resilience of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and commit ourselves to the ongoing journey of reconciliation. Now, in today's webinar, we will explore how we prepare for dry weather conditions. We'll explain North East Water's urban water strategy and drought preparedness plan. We will share with you the latest water outlooks for our region and discuss the potential for water restrictions in the coming months. And we'll also highlight the importance of water conservation at all times, but particularly now. I would like to introduce my colleagues. They're all experts in their fields and senior leaders here at North East Water. We have Jess Littlejohn, who is our Manager at Water Treatment and Quality, Dr. Jill Fagan, Manager Infrastructure Strategy and Livability, and John Day, who is General Manager of Environment, Systems and Operations. Now, before we get started, just a few housekeeping items so that we have a smooth session. Please note all audience members, you'll have your cameras and microphones switched off for this webinar. And we are recording this webinar so it can be available on our website after the session. And we'll send you a link so you can access it afterwards or share it with others. And finally, I do encourage you to ask questions. Now, you can submit your questions at any time using the little Q&A function at the top of the screen, and we'll try to address as many questions as possible during the session. Now, just before we go into the topic, I might just give you a little bit about what we do here at North East Water. Now, essentially, we plan for and provide critical water and sewage services to 39 towns across a 20,000 square kilometre region. We serve over 120,000 people, ensuring that they have access to high quality, clean and safe drinking water. We have a lot of infrastructure and treatment plants. We have 21 water treatment plants and 22 wastewater treatment plants. And our extensive pipe network includes 1,300 kilometres of sewer mains and 1,800 kilometres of water mains. At North East Water, we're committed to investing in and maintaining our infrastructure to meet current and future needs. We're also committed to using 100% renewable energy from July 1, 2025, and to be net zero emissions by 2035. Now, I also wanted to mention that North East Water currently has the second lowest average water bills in regional Victoria. And finally, that we are proud to employ 220 local employees who all provide exceptional services to the region. Everything from strategic planners to engineers to water quality experts, environmental scientists, experienced operators and customer service specialists, all serving our community. Now, just to share with you our corporate strategy, North East Water's Strategy 2040 sets out our vision for the future. And that's one in which we actively at North East Water contribute to a healthy environment, thriving communities and a prosperous region. But we never forget our purpose, and that is to deliver our customers and community with safe, sustainable water and wastewater solutions. Now, this strategy addresses the pressing challenges of climate change, population growth, rapid technological advancement, cybersecurity, and evolving customer and community expectations. And in particular, Strategy 2040 focuses on ensuring a secure water future for our region. And that's the perfect segue to discussing drought preparedness and water conservation today. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Jill Fagan, our Manager of Infrastructure Strategy and Livability, to provide an overview of our urban water strategy.
Thanks, Jo. So our urban water strategy is our 50-year planning tool for delivering secure and sustainable urban water supplies. It's reviewed every 5 years in conjunction with our Drought Preparedness Plan, which we'll tell you about in a little bit, and it provides strategic long-term actions as well as short-term actions. The way you know how we're delivering on this is through our water resources and security actions, which are tracked through the annual water outlooks, and we also publish an annual tracking report on our website. Now, the next 3 bullet points are examples of actions in the last urban water strategy that was published in 2022. It includes securing additional entitlement on the Ovens River in Bright to serve the growing population, reducing the dead storage volume in Nil Gully, which holds water. So if there's a bit of dead storage that we can't fill with water, we're trying to improve that so we can hold more water in our existing storages, and reducing water losses across the organisation. So a bit of the water that we produce leaks out from pipes and other parts of the reticulation network that we use to get the water to you. So the more we can reduce the losses, the more water reaches customers. So our consultation on our urban water strategy for 2027 will commence later this year. So we encourage you to get involved. On the next slide, we've got an example of one of the investigations currently underway that looks at future water security. It's in Wangaratta. Many of you will be aware that Wangaratta is served through surface water from the Ovens River. But sometimes the Ovens River runs very low or even runs dry, so we need to have a backup water supply. We've currently got a groundwater backup supply, which is the image you can see there. That's the treatment process, treat the groundwater before it goes out to customers. But we understand that under climate change and growing population, that we'll need more supplements to our surface water and existing groundwater supply. So we've got a project underway that's jointly funded by North East Water and the National Water Grid Fund, which is looking at further options around groundwater. So we're drilling 5 investigation bore sites. These bores are in different locations to the current groundwater extraction point. And we're doing a pumping test to determine the water quantity and the water quality and see whether it's fit for what we need. So these works will determine the overall feasibility of groundwater and managed aquifer recharge to improve Wangaratta's groundwater water security. So managed aquifer recharge is where if we've got excess flows, let's say in the Ovens River during wet periods, we could take a little bit of that water, pump it down into the bore and then leave it there and then withdraw it during dry periods to serve to customers. So I'd now like to introduce you to Jess Littlejohn, our Manager of Water Treatment and Quality.
Thank you, Jill. Hi, everyone. When we're talking about drought, it's always good to look back on where we've come from. As we're all aware, we've been lucky enough to experience a few wet years and some stable weather patterns over the last kind of 10 years. But if we cast our minds back, the last major drought in the region was the millennial drought, which was between 1997 and 2009. I'm sure we've all got memories of that time and the water conservation measures that you took. I vividly remember having a bucket capturing water in the shower that I then used on my garden. So if you do cast your mind back, I'm sure that you'll remember some of those things that we all did. 2006, 2007 was the peak of the drought, and that period is regarded as the worst year on record for stream flows and inflows to storages. And during this time, all of North East Water's systems were placed on different levels of water restrictions. Those restrictions started to ease around 2008, with the final restrictions coming off in 2011. And since then, we have not implemented any water restrictions. The image to the right of your screen there is the McCallsay Reservoir, one of our 2 reservoirs that supply raw water to Benalla. As you can see, this reservoir got down very low during 2019. It was actually at 8%, which represented only a few weeks of water supply left in that system. So back then we were very busy investigating alternative pumping options from the Broken River, but luckily the drought broke and the reservoir filled up. So drought's not only just about water volumes. Drought or low dam levels can also lead to potential environmental consequences and treatment challenges for us as well. For example, fish kills if the dissolved oxygen in the water gets too low, and water quality issues with having to use water at the bottom of the storages, which is typically has high nutrients and high manganese. This can also exacerbate algal blooms, which sometimes can make it hard for us to treat the water. This photo is of Lake Hume, another example of where we were back in 2007 when the lake got down to 18% capacity. You can see the comparison with the 100% capacity on the left, which we experienced last year, and the Lake Hume is currently at 25% capacity. North East Water have a number of documents and processes through which we manage our precious water resources and ensure that we're taking timely steps when necessary to protect our resources. One of these is the Drought Preparedness Plan. This plan's reviewed and updated every 5 years or following the implementation of water restrictions. The plan details our response to dry periods and is tailored to each system. Plan contains trigger levels at different reservoir heights or stream flow levels and the actions that we need to take at those trigger levels. The first trigger level is always general awareness and communications plans to help the community understand our water position. The DPP was last reviewed in 2022 and is currently being reviewed as part of the urban water strategy. Water outlooks are another mechanism by which we manage and predict our water resources. This is our short-term process versus the long-term look forward under the urban water strategy. The water outlooks are published in December and forecast the summer period and the likelihood of water restrictions being required during this period. If required, we do updates, and this year we updated a number of our systems in February as the conditions changed between December and February. To produce these water outlooks, we use a number of forecasting tools. So the Bureau of Meteorology 3-month forecast for chance of exceeding median rainfall and maximum temperature across the region. The BOM 3-month stream flow forecast at key gauges, the storage forecast for North East Water operated dams and other key dams around the region, for example, the Hume Dam, Dartmouth or Lake Buffalo, and also the allocation position, especially for the Murray River system. So what do our water outlooks currently tell us? So the Bureau of Meteorology is forecasting average to below average rainfall and higher than average maximum temperatures for the next 3 months. So we have forecast a dry climate scenario. North East water storages have decreased over the summer and autumn period, and most are sitting below the 60% mark. The only exception here is Hamilton Hill in our Corryong region, which is sitting just below 90%. So to give you some figures, Bright off-river storage is sitting at 57% and Benalla is sitting at 51%. So despite this, water restrictions for North East water systems are unlikely for winter 2025. This could change coming into summer this year and into next year, and that's something that we will follow closely. We currently do have some issues with low flows on Buffalo Creek, which is the offtake location for Myrtleford water supply, and we have been unable to extract for extended periods from this system across summer and autumn in 2025. We did receive some great rainfall last weekend, which allowed us to turn on the pumps and pump for a period of 5 days to fill up the reservoir slightly, but unfortunately the stream flows dropped below passing flow requirements, so we've had to turn the pumps off again. Myrtleford, as I'm sure some of you are aware, is currently under a water conservation campaign to try and reduce usage and prevent or defer the implementation of water restrictions. Thanks, Luke. Next slide, please. So given that we're in a dry climate with low storage levels, there are some simple actions that we all can take to conserve water. The permanent water saving rules were introduced across Victoria in 2011 to help us use water efficiently. They're always in place and are consistent across all of Victorian water corporations. So the permanent rules include 3 simple actions. So making sure you use a trigger nozzle on your hose, only using watering systems between those hours, and not watering concrete paths or driveways. So enacting these simple water conservation measures can have a large impact on our water resources. So water restrictions. What do water restrictions look like as a reminder, given that we haven't seen them in quite a few years? So water restrictions can be put in place to help water corporations manage urban water usage when supplies are low. There's 4 levels, stage 1 to stage 4, and each level is set out in North East Water's water restriction bylaw. Restrictions are implemented as per the Drought Preparedness Plan that I mentioned earlier. So staged restrictions mainly focus on outdoor water usage and relate to when and how often community can water their gardens and lawns. So at the most severe restrictions, stage 4 includes a ban on all outdoor water use. So as we're all aware, water is a scarce and finite resource, especially in Australia, and water conservation is critical due to increasing population and climate change. Here at North East Water, we want to ensure long-term water security for its growing communities, minimise the effects of drought and water shortages on communities, and also protect the health of our waterways. So I'll finish up the presentation with a couple of water saving tips that I hope you can take away and consider. So always follow the permanent water saving rules. These rules are in effect always, so please make sure that you're following them. Limiting shower time to 4 minutes, only using the washing machine and dishwasher when full or on eco mode, only watering your garden or lawn when it truly needs it, and mulch is a really great way of preventing evaporation. Checking for leaks on taps and toilets is a fantastic way to potentially lower your water bills as well as conserve water. So more information can be found on our website, more tips around the house and the garden.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Thanks, Jess, and thanks, Jill, for taking us through that. We're now at that time where I'd like to open up the question to the floor to some questions and answers. So if you've got any questions for Jill or Jess, and I can see John Day is also with us as well. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask, pop it in the Q&A function. John's in the car. Hi, John. We'd be very happy to answer them. I might ask the first question actually, if I can. This might be on everybody's mind, Jess and Jill and John, but like it's almost winter. How can we be looking like we might be going into drought or pre-drought?
That's a really good question, Jo. Look, conditions have been dry for quite an extended period. Even back last year, rainfall in winter and spring of 2024 was significantly below average. And this is typically the peak period for raw water extraction for us to replenish our storages following the summer period. So going into summer of 2025, this meant that our storage levels were lower than ideal. So combined with low autumn rainfall, the storage levels have decreased even more, and this is why we're talking today about drought preparedness and small steps that we can take to prevent the potential for restrictions being implemented.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. I've got another question. Are we going to run out of water?
Look, our aim is to manage our water resources so this doesn't occur. So I'd like to say no, we're not going to run out of water. We actually work really hard to undertake contingency planning for water security, looking at alternative water sources and ways of ensuring that we don't run out of water. And one example that Jill mentioned earlier was the groundwater investigations. We also undertake a climate adaptation and resilience planning review each year, whereby we workshop a particular stressor that linked to climate change to identify preparedness actions that we can take. And at the moment, we're in the process of reviewing our drought preparedness to identify what additional steps we can take in this space.
Mm-hmm. So everything points to being planned and prepared and constantly monitoring the situation and looking at ways that we can continue to adapt and be resilient.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. I do have another question, and please keep popping questions in if you've got them. But the question is, what actions are being taken to increase water security? So there you go. We've actually given a couple of examples, the Wangaratta example, and you've given a few more. Is there anything else we want to talk about, Jill, John, or Jess?
I think, Joe, it's important to. I think it's.
I'll come to you, Jill. Yeah, you go first, John, and then I'll go to Jess. Jill.
Yeah, look, I think it's important. It's great that last question around, are we going to run out of water? We didn't run out of water at any town during the Millennium Drought. And since then, we've put even more resilience into our systems, such as groundwater, Wangaratta, the off-river storage at Bright. The list goes on. There's been a lot of work that we've done since that Millennium Drought from the learnings of the Millennium Drought. So, that should hold us in good stead, but we always look to our customers to help us during these times.
Yeah, thanks, John. And Jill, did you want to add to that, or?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There's a number of ways that we work on improving water security. And one other example that hasn't been mentioned yet is integrated water management. This means working with our other water sector partners, so councils, catchment management authorities, government, First Nations groups, on how we can use alternative water sources like rainwater, stormwater, and recycled water. If we can use more of them in place of potable water, that means existing potable water can go further. So you'll see, for example, some of the new subdivisions in Wangaratta have really good stormwater features and rainwater tanks on each house. Northeast Water also supplies quite a few customers with the recycled water. So one example is in Rutherglen, where we currently supply recycled water to farmers and to a golf course for irrigation, so they won't use as much potable water. This is a good outcome. We also soon commencing an upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant and recycled water pipe network, which means that our treatment plant will be larger, it'll be able to process more wastewater, and also it will treat it to a higher quality, so there'll be more recycled water to go around as well. Yeah, thank you. And obviously our urban water strategy refresh will look at this in a lot more focus.
Yeah, so that's a really great point, Jill. So we're not just talking about our everyday household customers actually looking at ways that they can conserve water, but we are also really keen to hear from any businesses or industry that might want to look at how they might work with us to use recycled water if it's possible to supply that water to them, or any other ways that they might be able to reduce their water use or do it smarter. Is that fair to say, Jill, John?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Are there some good examples of that with business, John? Jill's mentioned a couple of examples.
Yeah, there's been a program for several years now on cleaner production, certainly with our major trade waste customers. And I mean, they're really driven by cost as well. So they're trying to reduce their consumption, not only for sustainability, but also around ensuring that, they keep their costs down. So we continue to work with major customers around those cleaner productions.
Yeah, fantastic. I have another question. Where do you obtain your climate scenarios from, and how are these incorporated into your various supply forecasts? This is probably one for Jess, is it, or Jill?
I could start off on I can start off on this one. So our climate forecasts, we receive them from DECO in terms of the different climate scenarios. Jill, do you want to talk about how we incorporate that into our urban water strategy?
Yeah, sure. So the guidance from DECA is in line with the best practice guidance around how to forecast into the future when we're not exactly sure what we will get. So we have actually high, medium and low scenarios that we plan for. So what we mean there is a scenario of high climate change, which means like less and less water available more quickly, and the low climate change in which it's more gradual. We actually we stress test all of our systems against those scenarios and work out what we think is the earliest time that they will run out of water versus the latest time that they will run out of water. And then that informs our planning. We focus on the ones that are going to run out of water earlier. We get into looking at infrastructure solutions, demand management, which is, water conservation opportunities, improving water losses, and all the sorts of things that you've heard about today.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. I've got a question for you, John. Thinking back to the millennial drought, what was our community like in terms of adhering to restrictions and supporting, all banding together to get through the drought?
Yeah, and it was very good. And what has changed significantly since then is we were averaging around about 230 kilolitres per household before the millennium drought. Since the millennium drought, we've been lucky to probably hit 190 kilolitres per customer. So, there's been significant change, and even in, garden design and reuse of water, as Jill touched on before with water tanks. It's interesting though, because, millennium drought was, nearly 15 years ago. And what we've seen at Myrtleford has been a slow response to looking at reducing their water. So it will be interesting if we are to go under restrictions around really informing our community around supporting us during that. But I know this community is very clued into a drying climate and drought just as much as it is flood.
Yeah. Just on that, our community can we've got a really great section on our website, haven't we, Jess? Do you want to just explain what's on our website for everybody?
Absolutely. In terms of the Myrtleford campaign, Jo?
Yep.
So we've asked the Myrtleford community to voluntarily reduce their water usage, and we've set up some triggers or some targets that we're asking them to meet in terms of water used per household each day. And we're actually tracking the response via a web page that's available via our Northeast Water web page that indicates the daily water usage from Myrtleford and whether or not they've met that target that we've set. And we also look at that on a weekly basis to determine the likelihood of restrictions needing to be placed. So we're about halfway through the campaign. We're yet to see the full target reached in the first 2 weeks of the campaign. So we are looking to the community to hopefully step up in the last 2 weeks to make sure that this campaign's a success.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jess. And I see Luke has posted the website there for anybody who wants to check that out. And I've got one more question before we wrap up. And this is about which actions are we taking to manage leaks? And I might throw that to you, John, because you're doing a lot of work in that space, aren't you? Not
yeah,
you
look,
personally, but your teams.
Yeah, and look, it's certainly something that we can't ask our customers to do something that we're not doing ourselves. So we're doing a lot in that space, particularly around identifying where they are and working with, interesting enough, a lot more innovation has come in around leak detection since the millennium drought. So even working with companies that look at various forms of leak detection where you literally can't see water coming up above the ground, but you can hear it through ultrasonics. So just little things like that. There is a lot of technology out there, and we're certainly cluing into that to make sure that we're doing our side just as much as our customers are.
Yeah, thanks, John, and thanks for that question. We are at the end of our webinar now. If you have any further questions, you can certainly send us an email, and we'd be very happy to answer those. But I do want to thank everybody for attending today. I want to thank Jill, Jess and John for joining us and providing your insights and answers to questions. Now, if you'd like more information about our drought preparedness plan, our water outlooks, our urban water strategy, or even our strategy for 2040, you can get all that information and more, including also information about water conservation and our permanent water saving rules. You can find that on our website, which is at newater.com.au. Now, you can also watch our back catalogue of community webinars, and we've been doing community webinars for probably about 5 months now, and there's all sorts of topics. You can, there's water quality, there's wastewater treatment, there's carbon reduction programs, there's customer support and customer experience. So really, and also about our latest price submission engagement that we're undertaking. So I encourage you to have a look at some other of our community webinars. And if you have any further questions or need any more information, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We want to be able to help you with that information. So thanks again, everybody, for attending today's webinar, and we hope you found this session informative. We've enjoyed providing it to you, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Have a great day.